Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. And as you can see, I'm joined by Reese. So that means it is only one thing. It is Monday review time, recording on a Sunday. It's another 3 points to talk about. It's another clean sheet to talk about. And not 7, 8 days ago, people wanted Neil Harris hung, drawn and quartered after losing to a side that are immediately below us in the form table over the last 7. Could go up automatically. Not a week later, Reese, 6 points, back-to-back wins, another clean sheet at the weekend, 4 points clear of the drop zone. A lot of them people have not been seen on social media over the last 24 hours or so.
No, they're hard to find, actually. I'll be honest, I tried to find them. I couldn't.
No, very, very quiet. It's just, and again, it comes back to our frustration that we spoke about last week of being very vocal when they think things are going wrong and then don't even have the decency to come out and say that we've got things right. But that's all there is for negativity today.
Yep.
2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, as we always start. Team news, 3 changes. So it was quite a big change around for Gills. And I think Neil Harris, in fairness, did say once he'd got the new group in and up to speed that he was going to do it, playing Saturday, Tuesday. We saw it on a smaller scale in the week, didn't we? The 2-1 win over Grimsby, Sean Williams being taken out. But it was David Tatonda, Alex McDonald and Tom Nichols that all dropped to the bench for the game at Rochdale. And it was Shea Alexander off a very good cameo in the week. Sean Williams reinstated and Aidan O'Brien given a first start as well. And
yeah,
what did you think of the lineup when it came out at 2 o'clock?
You know what, right? Because Luke did his 11. He got 10 out of 11 this Saturday. He's going to get 11 one day. I'm sure of it.
I think I got 9. I stuck with Tatonda. I thought it would have been harsh to drop him out after one poorer performance. I think the big surprise for everyone was Tom Nichols dropping to the bench.
You know what? I'm going to go against the grain. I don't think it was surprised, actually. I think he's put such a big shift in, and I think if there's a game where you're going to drop him to give him a little bit of a respite, but you can introduce him into a game if you need the impact, would be this game. And
he did have that impact, which we'll get to later in the show.
Absolutely, and but the biggest one for me, which I was really pleased about, I really enjoyed seeing Shea Alexander on the pitch as a starting lineup. For what it's worth, Tatonda has done brilliantly, and one poor game has put Alexander back in. But it's nice that Harris has given these players opportunities, therefore, to start a game, considering how well he played at Grimsby. I thought it was a good opportunity, and I'd actually quite like to see that. I thought it was a good decision actually to give these players opportunity to show that we do have that depth and that ability to have that rotation, and I think that's what this lineup pretty much showed, and the fact that we could have Aidan O'Brien up there as well instead of Nichols being run into the ground, and I think that flexibility is something that falls into our favour moving forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I didn't see anything on social media. Don't get me wrong, I was out during the day anyway, but I didn't see anything in terms of, he's gone in and why is he playing? So that's a really good sign that you can make 3 changes and the quality's not dropping in the 11. And like you say, the bench is stronger now, isn't it? We've got loads of options. So the team in full was Glenn Morris still in goal, of course. Yep. Back 4 was Shea Alexander at right back, the same centre-back pairing of Max Emmett and Connor Masterson, and Robbie McKenzie switched sides to play at left full-back. Midfield 4 was the captain, Sean Williams, Timmy Dieng, Dominic Jeffries and George Lapsley, and Oliver Hawkins was, of course, partnered by Aidan O'Brien. We started really well, didn't we? First 45 seconds or so, I think it was. It was a really good ball, sort of dropped to George Lapsley on the halfway line, but instead of having a touch, just fizzed it into Aidan O'Brien's feet. And his first touch was immaculate and showed a good little bit of skill to get away and ended up blazing one over the bar. But I thought it showed really good intent from the off.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, and that was one of the things I was really worried about going away to a Rochdale team. Let's not forget who, even at the bottom of the table, I think we'll talk about that. Did kind of show in the end, but they were never going to be pushovers. But to start from the get go, and to show the quality we had instantly was really promising to see. And I'd barely done my introduction to my video, and I was already commentating on the Gillingham attack. And I thought, well, okay, this is a good start, and hopefully it was going to continue. But yeah, we definitely started the game with some proper intent. It was great to see.
Yeah, and I thought so as well. And I spoke to Charlotte, the Rochdale fan, in the preview show, and obviously we spoke about recent form, and it was 1 point from 18 for Dale. But if you actually break down their fixtures, they've had some really tough games, and they've been in all of them. Before yesterday, they'd only lost 2-1 to Leyton Orient, conceded last minute against Northampton to only draw 1-1. That could have been a massive result and could have made yesterday very different as well. Lost by the odd goal to Salford. Lost 1-0 at home to a Carlisle side that are still gunning for automatic promotion. I think
that sounds a lot. It sounds a lot like us before January, actually.
There's
You know,
loads
just
of
not,
similarities, isn't there?
yeah,
Yeah, there
not
really,
getting
really is.
thumped,
Yeah,
but
but just not having enough quality in either box
yeah,
to ultimately get yourselves over the line in tight football matches. Um, yeah, I think after that, the best chance really, because the game was, and I've written down it in both halves, bitty, fragmented,
mm,
no real quality. Ball spent a lot of time in the air again, a lot like the first half against Grimsby, dare I say it. But the best chance felt to Dom Jeffries after quarter of an hour. I thought we worked it really well from right to left, and it ended up finding Robbie McKenzie, who dinked a little ball into the danger area, and it sort of fell to Dom 8, 9 yards out. And I think it
yeah.
was a combination of defender and Richard O'Donnell that kept it out. And then I think the phase carried on, and George Lapsley had a shot blocked as well. But I thought the first 15 minutes were quite odd because we came out the blocks flying, and then there was just this big lull, and then we had a really
Mm.
good chance. So I suppose it comes back to the point I've already said about it just being very sort of fragmented and bitty. The game, there was no real flow to it.
No, it was an odd game. It was, I mean, I don't know what the percentage stats are at that particular point, but it kind of felt like there was a big void in the park, and no one could really get a foothold in the game. And I think everyone probably had 50% of possession each. It was a really, no one wanted to take the game by the scruff of the neck, you know, and no one really wanted to do anything with it. I just no one really could find their groove to begin with, and it was that first attack actually from Dom Jeffries which really started to put Gillingham's control of the first half performance. But yeah, the first 15 minutes, like you say, there was not much going on apart from the first 60 seconds of the game. Between that and about 15, 20 minutes, that there wasn't really too much. And it was, like you say, that Dom Jeffries opportunity in the first sort of quarter of the game. That's when we started to get to stamp our mark on that first half. But yeah, but it was pretty empty for the first 15
Yeah, it
minutes.
wasn't a great deal. It's certainly one. I've seen someone comment on our Facebook page Sunday morning and said, "Oh, last on the highlights again." But to be honest, I'm not surprised. It's not going to live. If it was a film, it'd probably go straight to DVD. It's not going to be seen in the cinema,
No.
that type of thing. But it's a game that we don't get anything out of 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, and it's
Yeah,
one of them
exactly.
games where you just got to stay in it and dig in and get yourselves over the line. And ultimately, we did that. To be fair to Rochdale, though, they did have a couple of half chances. I thought they were more are doing than any real quality. The first one I think is decent enough from Rochdale. It gets out to their right hand side and it gets played into the lead. I think it was Dodgson in the middle of the park, and he plays a nice reverse ball to be fair. But it looks like it should run out of play, or we should just go and clean it up. But I think there's a bit of hesitation from Glenn Morris, and we don't say that a lot. He sort of comes, stops, and then goes. And I think the player nips round him, and then it sort of breaks into the 6 yard box, and Maxima manages to hack it clear. And the other one was Tim Dieng, and we've said this a couple of times in recent games, giving away cheap possession on the halfway line, and they break. I think it's Scott Quigley ends up in the penalty area, but drags it horrifically wide. I think Peter Lloyd on the commentary said it actually bounced off the corner flag and went out for a throw.
I've seen a fan view of that, and it hit the corner flag and then went out for a throw in that one.
So it wasn't like Rochdale were playing great stuff. They were doing what we were doing. They were digging in and hanging in there. But yeah, I just thought that the chances they got, even in the second half, and we'll come on to them, were more because we switched off a little bit and had little lapses rather than Rochdale playing through us and getting in behind regularly.
But I just want to say one thing in fairness to Rochdale, a couple of those passes you described that went through, they were of some solid quality, to be fair. And it wasn't, you know, and one of the things I was really worried about going into this game yesterday was I mean, Rochdale, the second lowest scorers in the league, or we're the lowest, of course, but they just had this attacking prowess, which they knew what they could do with the football. They knew how to do it, and when given the opportunity, they were threatening moving forward. And it only was to take one moment for them just to get one of those shots a bit more on target, sorry, or Glenn Morris he made a save, I think, about near the end of the first half, and if that slips through, for example, you know, and all of a sudden they're back in the game with a little more confidence. But actually their movement in the middle of the park going forward, they put a couple of good balls through that sliced us open, and you know, and that was really concerning for me, as because I knew in the second half that's what we're going to have to be up against and defending against that, and we'll talk about defense in the second half. But this was never going to be a pushover, and that Rochdale did, you know, for being bottom of the table, had some quality. And what this says to me is that actually most teams in this league, there's really not too much between all the teams, really. You know, and I think Rochdale showed that yesterday, that they do, even though they're bottom of the table, they still had some decent players who could play some decent football, and we had to be on our guard. And luckily we were.
Oh yeah, I'm not disputing that. You know, they've got good players, and I had them a bit higher when I did my season preview. I didn't have them getting relegated, and I think I had them about 16th, 17th. I thought they bought fairly well in the summer, but for whatever reason, I thought we bought fairly well in the summer. But yeah, I suppose it comes back to, like we've said, and again, it's another link to us. Even when like the likes of that Owen Dodson plays a good ball in behind, the striker's probably lacking in confidence, so he doesn't make that first movement. He's caught on his heels. I think my point about us being it coming from our era was because normally Glenn Morris just comes and picks that up, or Connor Masterson just clears it out for a throw in. But because they sort of left it to each other, it then created more of a chance than there should have been. But yeah, I don't dispute that Rochdale have got decent players, and we've said hundreds of times there's not a great deal between the top teams and the bottom teams in this league. But confidence plays a huge part, doesn't it?
Hugely. And I think that showed yesterday as well, for what it's worth. That really did show yesterday.
It did, because shortly after we went up the other end, and a centre forward who'd scored a last minute winner, or a late winner at least, on Tuesday night, full of confidence, was alert to something bouncing in the 6-yard box. I thought the phase of play just before was not comical, but it made me smile watching the game, because Robbie McKenzie goes for that long front. I think Maxima tries to flick it on, but gets far too much on it and essentially just heads it back to Robbie McKenzie. He could have headed it out for a goal kick. But so that's another sign of bits of luck going our way now that didn't go our way pre-Christmas. And there was another one in the second half, which we'll get to. But then I thought Robbie McKenzie does all that he can. He has a touch out of his feet. He gets a decent enough ball into a dangerous area. It's rank bad defending from Rochdale. And again, it comes back to why they're down the bottom. And it comes back to us again. What we'd have switched, like Stevenage, we switched off from a ball into our box, lost 1-0. But Ollie Hawkins still has to be alert and adjust his body. And I think he's not got a lot on it, but he's just managed to get enough of his left foot on it to guide it away from Richard O'Donnell.
I think it's a classic shinner. I think essentially.
Yeah, it looks like one of them that sort of rolled down the front of his leg and like a ski jump. But it's ended up in the back of the net, and that's the main thing for us. And I thought after then, and you've mentioned the save that Glenn Morris makes from Toby Malarkey, where he gets both hands up and beats it away. I thought after that, though, the game settled down and we were much the better side for the remaining 20 minutes of the half. And dare I say, it probably should have gone in at least 2-0 up.
Yeah, we should have done, really, after that save from Morris. I have to say, actually, even though Morris did make that save, speaking as an amateur goalkeeper, I thought he'd do a lot better at punching it away, because he punched it straight back into the danger zone, which I thought was unlike Morris to do something like that.
The only thing I looked at the way he went was it maybe did it swerve and dip a little bit last minute? I mean, the angle's not great from you need to be right behind it to see it, but it just looked like he had to sort of adjust his hands late and then managed to just get something on it.
It's a bit harsh for me, actually, because he saved it. It was going in, wasn't it? So that's the main thing. But yeah, you're right. After that, we managed to get a foothold in the game. And there's that. You probably talk about this attack that Lapsley had as a ball over the top. I can't remember who passed it, actually.
John Williams.
Is it John Williams that did that? Sean Williams did that. And one of the I just think if he takes his time a little bit, he might get a better connection. But interestingly, the connection he got on it made it more difficult for the goalkeeper to save.
Yeah, I think so, because if he probably catches it, it goes straight to Richard O'Donnell down his throat. Yeah. Because he scuffs it again, almost like the Hawkins one, it rolls towards the corner. And I know O'Donnell had to come off shortly after. I don't know whether he injured his shoulder doing that or something else previously, but yeah, he could have had a touch, George, couldn't he?
Yeah,
he's in the middle of the penalty area, touch to his left, and then he's got the whole goal to aim at.
Absolutely. He had two defenders around him, actually, so it had to have been pretty swift to touch and release. But yeah, a player of his quality can do that. I think when he looks back on that, he probably wished he had an extra bit of touch, and to get a better connection in the shot. But yeah, arguably could have gone 2-0 up, and I think on another day we would be 2-0 up going into half time.
Yeah, I've written down after that, half fizzled out. No great quality from either time, but we showed more moments of it. They were fleeting, but we had good players that could get us into good areas when we had enough time and enough ball and enough about us to actually take our time, because the game seemed to just be played at a frenetic pace throughout the first half. But when it settled down, you could see there was a slight golfing class between the quality of the teams in terms of ability and also in terms of confidence levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I've also written down again, defended fine on the whole. Two openings for Rochdale came from our errors.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, the defence in the first half was good. It was better in the second half, as we will discuss. But I thought, as our first half goes, it was really solid, and something which is more is a more of a Gillingham performance than we've experienced way before January. And I was pretty content with how we went into the first half 1-0 up, and I thought it was a fair enough reflection of how the game unfolded in that 45-minute period.
Yeah, because you look at the possession. I know they had 58 when he had 42, but you're going away from home, so a home team's going to have more possession. We generally don't have loads of ball anyway. It's the way we play. But both sides had 3 shots on target. We had 10 in total, 10 shots. They only had 6. And there's a couple of blocks in there that I think would be classed as going on target if they don't hit the defender. So yeah, we was the ones that certainly were making more openings in the final third, I thought, albeit they weren't clear cut, all of them. So yeah, for me, I thought it was about fair enough at the break. If you go away from home and you're 1-0 up at half time, you're doing plenty right, would be my assessment of things.
Absolutely, yeah. No matter where you go, if you go away from home, if they will say if you can win most of your home games and draw most of your away games, you're in a good shout.
Which is what we're doing. It's what we're doing at the moment, isn't it? I think. What's that away from home now? One at Colchester, drew at Swindon, lost at Mansfield, and one at Rochdale. So what's that? 2 wins, a draw, and a defeat from 4. So you're looking at 7 points from 4.
Yeah, 7 points. Yeah, it's a good return.
Nearly 2 points a game away from home is really, really, really impressive.
Yeah, that's top 4, top 3 form. You know,
can't say that though because some won't like that.
No, they won't know. Sorry.
Second half, anyway. I jest before I get jumped on again. There were 2 early bookings for Rochdale. One was absolute nailed on yellow. I mean, there was the Jimmy Keohane one came first, but the Ethan Ebanks Landale one. It was a great, and again, great flick, I thought, from Ollie Hawkins. And I thought him and Aidan O'Brien did that really well first period. And I want to talk about Aidan at the end because it was his first start. But little flick round the corner, and George Lapsley, great feet.
Yeah.
Absolutely wiped out. Like I say, it's the only yellow I've seen recently that's more 100% was Alex McDonald Tuesday night when he just hacked the bloke down on the halfway line as Grimsby tried to break. But yeah, if ever there was a phase of play that you needed to say to a referee, this is a yellow card, that was the perfect opportunity.
It's like textbook page 1 of yellow cards. This is a yellow card.
Yeah, knee across the thigh, dead leg, wallop.
Yeah, and in fairness, actually, it was because Lapsley went down, and I can imagine with a bit of a thump, and but it was late. It was. I actually think Ebans Landor. It wasn't that intentional. I just think Lapsley was so quick, it just took him by surprise. He, just completely swiped me. Generally, I imagine was going for the ball, but because Lapsley was so quick, just absolutely.
I think because of where it is on the pitch, you cannot not give a yellow card. I think maybe if that's on the halfway line, he might get away with it. I don't know. Possibly. Maybe I'm trying to help him out too much. I'm not sure. But again, in fairness to Dale, I thought they started the second half fairly well.
Yeah.
I've written down there was a ball coming from their right, and I want to talk about this because it's something that we did in the first half of the season, but we didn't do the second phase properly. I think Maxima went out to meet it, but didn't quite get enough on the clearance, and it fell sort of 20 yards out, but straight away up, bang, went and blocked the shot. Whereas before Christmas, we missed the first clearance. We sort of get up, meander, do a lot what Rochdale did yesterday, unfortunately, from their point of view. But Max was straight up on his feet, got out there and blocked the shot, and the danger passed. And then I think shortly after that, good delivery into the box. I think Ian Henderson peeled off at the back post and headed it straight down Morris's throat, but the offside flag was up anyway. But we've spoken about Maxima plenty of times. We've spoken about our squad plenty of times pre-Christmas, but there just seems to be, again, little bits that we're doing better that are helping us come out the right side of the line, so to speak.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned, actually, like defensively, what we're doing a lot better now is that we're closing down a lot quicker, which I noticed yesterday. But when we our defense has more of a conviction, like they know where to be at what time, and if they make a tackle and the ball is still in the danger area, we're up on our feet and we know where to go. We know what area to fill. We know who to mark to be able to close that ball down or get into a stronger defensive position again. Actually, I would argue the only game so far after December where that hasn't been the case is Mansfield away. But that's just because of their method of attrition. They just kept recycling the ball back in. But like defensively, it's really, really consistent in the way that if the ball's coming in, players know where to be, Eamon knows where to be, Master knows what to do with it, and as soon as we get the opportunity to clear our lines, we do. Actually, I thought yesterday we could have cleared our lines a little bit better, so to speak, but generally speaking, I actually thought that defensively we were pretty solid, and we're much more solid in that back line. It's a much more reassuring back four than we have previously, and that genuinely showed yesterday as a defensive performance.
Yeah, and that's 4 games consecutively now that they've played as a pair, Conor Masterson and Max
Yeah.
Emo. So starting to build up that relationship that they had at the back end of last season. And we're just starting to remember how good Conor Masterson is as a lower league
Yeah.
footballer. Fingers crossed we can get him in on a permanent, because he's been very good since he's returned.
I'm sure we mentioned it. There's a tackle right at the end I want to talk about, which is incredible.
There's another one I want to mention before
Okay.
that, but we'll get to both. And that wasn't Conor Masterson. But I thought, again, another thing that we did well was we were under the cosh, but then we've now got the players to go and keep the ball. And I know we didn't do it great on the whole Saturday, but again, when we had to, we kept it and we was able to play ourselves out of danger. That was a game that felt for me, that first 15 minutes or so, however long it was Saturday, if that was a before Christmas, again, we'd have sunk deeper and deeper. The chances would have kept coming and coming, and eventually we'd have switched off, or eventually there'd have been a bit of quality and we'd have conceded. Whereas now we was able to roll our sleeves up and go, no, we're not letting them boss the game. We're going to get back on the front foot. And we went up the other end, and that wasn't, again, it wasn't a clear-cut chance, but I thought it was something that Aidan O'Brien did really well all game. Ball got clipped over the top, I think, from Sean Williams again. Aidan O'Brien, you just see him have a quick look over his shoulder, sees where Ollie Hawkins is, knows he doesn't have to have a touch, and just flicks it with the outside of his right foot. And I think Hawkins ended up dragging one wide from about 20 yards or so. I think we actually got the free kicks. I think it might have been their right wing back, Odo, then ended up dragging O'Brien down off the ball because he was trying to get back into a position to take a receive pass if it come. But just things like that just got us back up the pitch and sort of nullified any threat or momentum that the home side were trying to build.
Yeah, no, I think, and one of the strengths in the centre of the park is that we were able, I think, Williams and O'Brien were able to control the game really well, even if we're on the back foot. Well, I think in the centre of the park we were able to pass with a little more confidence, and Dieng as well. It just felt a lot more comfortable, and it definitely added a bit more flow to the game in the second half, which was really great to see. And one thing I do want to say, actually, and sort of linking back to the first half, you kind of touched on it. Like when we went 1-0 up, there was a part of me inside that I thought, oh, we're going to win. But that's kind of like, it's just because we were playing so confidently in the centre of the park. And this is the first time this season I've genuinely thought that. We went 1-0 up and thought, oh, we've done it. That's it. We're going to get 3 points. I would never say that, like, obviously on my videos, but in retrospect, I genuinely thought that. But not only did I think that, I believed it. I thought, oh, that's it. We're going to go on and win this now, no matter what. I think this is a game we're going to win because we've gone 1-0 up. Like, we went 1-0 down early on before December. It's like, oh, we've lost.
Yeah, that was literally it. We either just thought, oh, let's turn the laptop off, or we all contemplated walking out the ground.
Yeah, but now go 1-0 up. I've gone, oh, we're going to win this game. We're going to get a second at some point, and that's just. It's just nice to be able to even think that process.
It is, and it goes back to what you said when we reviewed the Mansfield game. Even when we was 2-0 down second half, we said that we felt that we were still in the game. We're not saying we was going to come back and draw or win, but we mentioned moments, don't we? And it was the George Lapsley header at Field Mill that if that goes in, we're back in it with 20 minutes to play. All right, it didn't happen, but it's happening a lot more than it's not happening now for us. And like you say, the big word is belief amongst us as a fan base, and also amongst the playing group as well, and the coaching staff. And that's a massive thing. I want to talk about Rochdale. There was something on the iFollow coverage that I've watched when I've sat down and watched the game as a whole. They make a triple change after about an hour.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Danny Lloyd's substitution gets booed by the home fans. They don't want him to come off. We all love Danny Lloyd. We know what he offered to us in his short time at the football club. And again, I've noticed he's come out and tweeted after the game to his Rochdale fans and said, look, we know you're hurting. We are trying our hardest. And again, I don't think there's too much difference compared to where we were pre-Christmas. I don't think Rochdale are not trying, but I can understand why fans see it that way sometimes, because if you're low on confidence, and we saw it in the first half of the campaign, everything seems to take longer. Like the Maximo one we said about, missed his clearance, got up, blocked the shot, whereas before Christmas, probably took an age to get up. The shot goes in, confidence goes, heads go down, and that type of thing. So I think there's an element of that amongst the Rochdale playing squad. But I thought the more telling one was not Danny Lloyd being booed going off because they didn't want him to go off. was they actually actively cheered their captain being withdrawn. Now, I spoke to Charlotte on
Yeah.
the preview, and she said, "Look, he's not been great, and he got sent off recently." But I don't think that helps your players at all with half an hour to go in a game where you are only one goal behind.
It's one of these things that's always frustrated me with with a lot of football fans in general, is that, you know, if you have a team that is low of confidence and you know, and do you know, we say it goes two ways, doesn't it? So we always say you need a 12th man in the stadium, don't you? And you need that 12th man because it makes a big difference. But then if you give that 12th man the red card, all of a sudden they're on the players' backs and it has a big impact on their confidence. And I think I touched on this before when we mentioned about that series Welcome to Wrexham, and it was Dibble, their goalkeeper, got on the end of so much flack that he didn't want to play. And if you're getting cheered off by your own supporters as a captain as well, I you know what, right? I wouldn't want to perform, let alone do I feel like I can. I mean, this is it's one of the most self-destructing things I think you can do as a fan base. And what's interesting to me is at the end of the game, I did see maybe about 10-15% of Rochdale fans clapping their team off at the end of the pit on the end of the game. But it's I don't understand the concept of getting on an individual level on the player's back that much that you are cheering a substitution. Now, I'm not going to say that Gills haven't done that. I've been in the stadium when that's happened as well, many a time, but it's so unhelpful.
Yeah, you can sit there as a fan and you can do it on iFollow at the moment, or we can do it as fans in the ground, and you can sit there and you can say to your mate, he's not having a good game, he needs to be taken off. But to actively boo the fella or to boo a substitution, because that's not going to do anything for the player coming on, in the same sense that your club captain is not going to want to, not want, but it's clearly going to affect them.
Yeah.
And it almost becomes a vicious circle, doesn't it? Because number one, you're not playing well. Confidence drops. Fans get frustrated, then things happen. You lose another game, and it just keeps going and going, and it just keeps escalating and escalating. So I'm not sitting here digging out Rochdale fans, not a chance of that, because I know how they're feeling. And I said that to Charlotte on the preview show. It's horrible. It's really, really horrible. And we've had it for 2 seasons up until Christmas, where it just feels like even if you almost force yourself to be positive, it disappears really quickly. And that's how Rochdale fans are feeling at the moment, I can imagine. So I'm not sitting here and digging out their fan base. They're having to put up with a lot. But I just thought I had to address it because it doesn't help. We've come out the other side of it. And I really hope Rochdale come out the other side of it, whether that's this season, next season. Obviously, if they go down, it's going to be a really big task to get back in straight away. But there's still plenty of games to go. Just need one lucky bounce and it might all change. So to stick with it, Rochdale fans, I think is what I'm trying to say, because it will change eventually. And I know the tunnel is long and dark at the moment, but light will appear at some point, I'm sure of it. Anyway, back to the game. After that substitution, there was about half an hour left. Their big moment came.
Oh, yeah.
Was it a cross or was it a shot? For me, it's a cross that he's overhit.
Cross comes shot, one of those phrases, I think it is. It's it was so Tony Malaki, I tell you what, right, when he hits that, I don't know if you watched back my commentary, when he hits that, I stop talking because I think, oh, it's just going to go straight to the goalkeeper.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, as it's sort of like, not as it's rising, as it's sustaining and starting to fall, I'm thinking, oh no, Morris get caught out here. This is going right in the back of the net, and he just manages to claw something on it. He gets a slight touch, and he tips it onto the crossbar twice.
Yeah, he gets that touch, doesn't he? And I think Peter Lloyd made a good point. We're lucky that it comes back down onto the crossbar, because I think we switched off a little bit. We've not gone in. Rochdale have gone in. If that comes into the 6-yard box, they literally just tap it over the line.
It's Reece Bennett's there. Reece Bennett's there just to nod it in. And it was so lucky it hit the crossbar and then went out for what I think was a corner in the end. But yeah, it was one of those weird ones. Malaki will probably only know himself if he meant to do that. But for me, he's put an opportunist, dangerous cross into the box to get it in the danger zone, and he's overhit it. And it's nearly gone in the back of the net. And sometimes that happens in football.
And again, it comes back to them little moments that continually go in our way at the moment. Before Christmas, that either drops in or it bounces off the bar and lands at Reece Bennett's feet a yard from the back of the net.
Yeah.
Again, we react really well. we're going to have to talk about the Rochdale defending for the second goal, because I can. This is where
Oh,
it comes back to what we've said about where players look like they're meandering and coasting through games, because there doesn't seem any urgency as we get the ball over the halfway line towards the corner of their penalty area. But let's go back a phase. There is an unbelievable block tackle from Robbie
oh yeah.
McKenzie that stops a shot going at least on target, and eventually we then break and go and score to double our lead. It's unbelievable covering defending to get across, because it looks for all the world that he just sort of comes out of nowhere on the screen, and brilliant piece of work. And then again, we seem to have the confidence and the wherewithal. If that was a few weeks ago, we hack it up in the air. I think it's Sean Williams and Dom Jeffries have a little bit of calmness between them, play it out, and then we find the space. And Tom Nichols drives over the halfway line. I think he's supported by Shea Alexander.
Yeah.
From there, though, it's very sloppy from Rochdale. There seems no urgency to get out to the ball to make a tackle. Tom Nichols just wanders unattended into the penalty area. George Lapsley's not picked up at the far post. I'm not going to moan, but you can understand the frustration amongst the Dale fans again.
It was when I watched this, because the ball eventually came to Nichols. He's on the right hand side, and one of the things, and he's got and I started talking quite quick. He's got Alexander in support, and all of a sudden Nichols just starts walking, and I go, "Oh, the momentum of the game is slowed down a little bit," and then effectively just walks through into the box.
Yep.
Reece Bennett, by the way, I don't know if you can quite see it an eye follow. Reece Bennett at one point, not only does he turn his back, he turns the wrong way as well, completely neglecting what's happening behind it. Doesn't know where Nichols is running. And at that point, Nichols I don't want to say run through, he just jogged through.
No, it was all at very sort of pre-season friendly pace.
Yeah. And then he puts it, and he just takes a shot, and then it's going in the bottom left-hand corner, but just Lapsley just makes it. I have to say, actually, even though he's unmarked, it's a pretty good run, I have to say, just to get on the end of it, because without that, it's not going in.
No, I think it was probably bobbling wide if Lapsley doesn't get the touch. But even then,
yeah,
he just stands off the back of the man at the far post. There's no awareness defensively, and I don't want to dig Rochdale out too much, so let's concentrate on us. We can say it's a decent break. We played it well over the halfway line, and it's a good instinctive finish. But the game then was effectively over at 2-0. You'd have been very surprised if Gills had chucked that away. I'm not, because we're not talking Swindon. They've not got a Charlie Austin. They've not got players that can come off the bench like Hepburn Murphy and affect games like they did a few weeks ago. I've written down, and I think we've already mentioned it, in big moments, our better quality shone through. Game drifted to a conclusion. Aside from one tackle that you want to talk about, which could have made for a nervy finish with a couple of minutes to go if that man hadn't got there. So take it away.
It was a ball through, and I can't remember who was running onto it. Actually, I think it might have been Abraham Odo might have been running onto this, and then he looked for all the world. Looks like he's going to put his foot through it, and out of nowhere, Connor Marston has trekked back with some good defensive pace, and just put a really good tackling, got all of the ball and knocked it out for a corner right on the 18-yard line. That's when the tackle happened. But I just thought, it's about 88th minute. And your defender is still tracking back like his life depends on it, not to go 2-1 down, because then, like you say, you got a nervy finish. And what he's done, he's effectively just eradicated that nervy, jittery finish. And, who knows if that goes in, then it's a completely different game. And Gillingham, there was 4 minutes of injury time with a goal going. And if that did go in, that's 5 minutes of injury time. And then suddenly you've got 5 minutes on the back foot, and anything can happen. And we've seen that before. So I think it's completely underestimated how important that tackle is. I mean, it wasn't really even mentioned much on the commentary. It was just, Marston's made a tackle, it's gone out for a corner. And I'm like, whoa. That's firstly an amazing tackle, and secondly, he's saved potentially. The context is really important. He saved a really a nervy finish for all Gillingham fans watching it.
But again, it came from us giving it away, didn't it? I think it was.
No, it did. Yes,
we were playing it around on the halfway line. I think George Lapsley tries to go back to the centre half and plays it in between him and McKenzie, and that's when they break. And Odo, I think, eventually works his way out to Henderson. But yeah, Masterson, like we've said, showing that desire now that we perhaps wouldn't have seen. Well, we probably wouldn't have been 2-0 up in the 88th minute before Christmas, Gills fans. But
I just want to say one thing. I know you might say it was McKenzie's tackle that brought the block was the best tackle of the game, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think there was that tackle with Marston was the best tackle of the game in my opinion.
A score draw, we'll take it. It's fine. Full-time whistle blew a couple of minutes afterwards, and again, it's the same things that I've said. I feel like I'm copy and pasting it. It wasn't a pretty game. It was
No.
low on quality for large periods, but our quality moments were better than their quality moments.
Yep.
Our quality moments were more decisive than their quality moments as well. Their best chances, we've already said, came through our lapses. Scott Quigley dragging one wide, the Ian Henderson chance, where he's headed it, I think, straight at Morris, but he's offside, and then the Ian Henderson chance at the end that we've just touched on. One notable thing for me, and I thought this was really telling, again, about how we're approaching games now and how confidence makes you better as a whole. I lost count of how many times Matt Coles or Peter Lloyd said on commentary, ball into our box, headed away by Connor Masterson, Max Ema or Sean Williams. Sean Williams, I thought, was very good at just getting in between them if we were under the cosh to make an extra centre-half. But we'll get onto that more when we do match ratings.
Yeah.
But I just thought, all in all, in a game that was low on quality, for large periods, we showed another side to us again, like we had to do at Colchester second half, where we dug in, then managed to nick one on the break and seen it out fairly well.
It just seems to me, like you say, like Masterson or Ema or Williams heading the ball away, and it's just that thing, you know. If Rochdale are going to keep pinging the balls into the box like that, we got three men just going to head it away, and I think it kind of goes to show that, you know, Rochdale didn't really have another plan as such in that second half. That was kind of their approach, and we were quite happy to soak that up for the rest of the match and just be tall and strong in the box and get that ball clear. And that's what happened for the majority, particularly that second half.
Yeah, no, totally agree. It's you're going to, again, it comes back to a proper away performance, essentially. You soak up pressure, get yourselves in front, you can try and manage the game, and then you hope as the minutes tick down, you can go and pinch one on the break to see it out once they start taking more chances. And I think that's pretty much the pattern of the game. Going to talk about Rochdale's best player now, which is tricky because, and I mean this with the utmost respect, they're a poor side. That's why they're bottom at the end of the day. They're low on confidence, they're low on momentum, low on points, low on wins, low on everything that they need to be higher on. And again, we've been there. I've titled this Dynamic Dale, the most dynamic in a fairly pedestrian side, I thought. I know they've got players with pace, but I just thought everything they did was very predictable. For the most part. I've written mine down. You go first.
All right, okay. For what it's worth, I couldn't decide between two. I mean, it's very easy for a Gillingham fan to say the time Danny Lloyd was on the pitch, he was making an impact. He was, but he wasn't my best player. No. I'm struggling to decide between two players here, but I think I'm going to stick with my gut feeling. So
it was either two as well.
Yeah, so it was between it was either Scott Quigley was one.
It wasn't one of mine.
It wasn't one of yours. I thought for what it's worth, I actually thought he had a good presence on the game. For me, like Rochdale fans would say, no one's making 100% effort and all that. I think Quigley had good intentions and he was trying to make stuff happen. But for me, I thought the player that kept popping up and kept trying to do things and making things happen was Toby Malarkey for me. I thought he was the one that really shone out, in my opinion. And I thought, oh, you've selected him maybe? Is that what? Yeah. we haven't shared notes, I promise. But for me, he was the one that was just all over the pitch creating stuff, in my opinion. And his name kept coming up so much so that for one of the very rare moments when I watch and I follow, I'm able to learn his name and then use it whilst I'm commentating during my game.
That was the thing. His name was getting mentioned enough that you thought, I've just got to take note of him now because he's in and involved in and around all the stuff that's going on, whether that was defensively or from an attacking sense. So yeah, it was the same for me. The other one I thought who was trying to make things happen, but was Owen Dodson, who we've already mentioned. Yeah. And you never know if that through ball ends up in the back of our net. It could be a very different game. But yeah, I have to agree. I thought Toby Malarkey was very good. Considering this is a lad that's come out of non-league about 4 weeks ago, I thought he was very impressive. Certainly more impressive than his more experienced partners at the back in Reece Bennett and Ethan Ebanks-Landell. I thought he was very good. I've written down solid enough defensively, again, in the context of a side that's really struggling. Tried to get on as much as possible in a very pedestrian and predictable side. 90 minutes, 3 clearances, 1 interception. He had 97 touches, 76% pass completion, which was way and above the average for the game. I think ours was down at sort of low to mid 50s, and theirs was just under 70, I think. So he's above both sides. He won 59% of his duels overall, but 100% aerially as well, which is no mean feat when you're coming up against Aidan O'Brien and Oliver Hawkins in the first period. He had 2 shots. I'm not sure if the one that hit the bar has been classed as a shot.
Oh, no,
he was trying to make things happen in both halves of the football pitch for me, and I just think he looks. If they do go down, I think he'll be a very good player for him in the National League.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, actually, I think I read somewhere on Twitter a couple of Rochdale fans were saying that he's already their player of the season. He's only been there 5 minutes. So
well, I think the other name was Danny Lloyd, and he's only been there 10. So
yeah, exactly.
It shows where they are as a football club, unfortunately.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, Malarkey, he's got a very cool name to say as well. So all in all, it's a big tick.
Yeah, they have got some ones that don't roll off the tongue, have they? I mean, Ebanks Landell, that's a mouthful. Malarkey,
Diagoaraga.
I think they call him Dave, don't they, to make it easy. Keir Hain.
Yeah.
Odo, yeah. So there was some nice easy ones for us to get stuck into. Sariki came on in the second half.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Bugai Mella as well, I think it was. I might have got that wrong.
Bugai Mella, yeah. So,
it was fun for the commentators, I can imagine, for 90 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to Gills.
Yeah.
We'll do man of the match first, because obviously the ratings can somewhat give it away. Although I've not got one that is higher than a few. I've got a few on the same rating, is what I'm trying to say. But for me, I've cheated this week, Reece. I'm not going to lie. I've given it as a joint man of the match award. I don't know what you've done, but I've written mine down. So if you go first again.
I've given it to 1 though.
Okay, maybe it's one of the 2 that I've got.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? No, so for me, my man of the match goes to Connor Marston. I just think here we go. Yeah,
I gave it as a joint. I thought both centre backs were absolutely immaculate.
Yeah, I just thought, I don't know what, this tackle at the end that did it for me for Connor Marston. It was a joy to watch, and it just, what it does, it just shows that grit and determination we were lacking the first half of the season. He comes into the team and the passion's there. He really wants it. I don't know if, I'm sure all Gills fans saw him celebrating the second goal when Hawkins put it in against Grimsby, and I just,
to the point where the PA announcer actually thought he'd scored.
He'd scored the goal, yeah.
In the ground, yeah. We was all like, looking at each other in the rain and going, I'm sure that was Ollie Hawkins.
Yeah, but yesterday, and that passion really shone through yesterday. He was solid at the back. He was always heading away. He was towering above everyone else, solid defensively. But it's just that determination to make these important tackles at important times, and just to nullify the whole effect of Rochdale moving forward. And for him, yeah, of course, that Max Amer also played excellently well yesterday, made a couple of key clearances and tackles. But for me, just Masters, it would have been a draw if it weren't for that tackle at the end. For me, and it just edged him slightly better. I just thought he was fantastic. I
went the other way because as good as the Masterson tackle is, it's at the end and we're 2-0 up. I went because I thought the big moment for Maximo when he's alert to get that ball cleared out of his own 6-yard box when Glenn Morris was hesitant first half, and that could be 1-0 to Rochdale rather than them getting back in it at 2-1. So for me, plus the app that I use gave them the same rating, and I couldn't split it. So, but yeah, if we look at your choice, Connor Masterson, 90 minutes played, 3 clearances, 2 block shots, 2 interceptions, a tackle, 58% pass completion, 100% ground duels, won 66% of his aerial duels. I wrote it down as a pair, but I'm going to look at Max individually then, because we've looked at Connor as well. 90 minutes played as well, 10 clearances, 1 block shot, 3 interceptions, a tackle. Key thing for me with both of them though, Reece, dribbled past, 0 for the pair of them. Not once were they dribbled past.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know that information, actually. That's impressive, to be fair. That's very good.
And Max won 75% on the floor and 66% in the air. Again, it was exactly the same. So just a proper centre-back pairing performance for me, and I couldn't split it. I thought it'd have been unfair. Robbie McKenzie, I thought, was in contention as well for that tackle, but I thought the centre-backs it was, again, and it's because you hear things when you watch it on iFollow rather than when you're in the game. I just couldn't get away from it, because all I kept hearing from Peter Lloyd was Max Emer heads it away, Connor Masterson heads it away. Oh, there's a block from Max, there's a clearance from Connor. Thought they were absolutely superb. And again, like you mentioned about Connor, so that physicality is probably something that Will Wright certainly misses at the moment. And dare I say it, Elkan Baggott missed a little bit as well, because when he came up against someone like John Akindi on Boxing Day, he got absolutely rattled.
Yep.
Whereas now, Conor Masterson's coming up against anyone, and you fancy him to do a job on him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to give it to both, but I'm just going to stick with my guns this one.
No, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. I bottled it and went for only 2, so because I couldn't decide. So you stick to your guns. It's absolutely fine. But it's just great to see Max again consistently putting in good performances, and Conor has come in and slotted back in like he's never been away. We have to do all we can to get him on a permanent, don't we?
I would love him to be permanent next season, because that would be a real show of intent. Because he could play at League One level, of course.
100%.
And we've got him down here at League Two as on a loan, but I genuinely think that we can, if we can get him, then and aim at the back again, I think we've got a solid centre 2 at the back that can really
that spine just looks very good now, doesn't it? Glenn Morris, we can hopefully get another year. The 2 centre backs we've said, Sean Williams looks like a much different player since the rebuild. Tim Dieng, I know he's been slightly off it the last couple of weeks, but he offers physicality and legs. Dom Jeffries. We're in an all right position when we're leaving Stuart O'Keefe out of the squad for 4 weeks. That's the turnaround for me, sort of encapsulated in a nutshell. And then you look at people like O'Brien, Hawkins, Nichols, rested and rotated at the weekend, that give us different dynamics as a threat, and it's great to see. It'd be another one I'd do all I can to try and get Aidan O'Brien in on a permanent, because he just looks a different player under Neil Harris.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
I want to talk about Aidan O'Brien quickly.
Yes.
I thought first half he was absolutely immense. He almost does a bit of Tom Nichols and a bit of Oliver Hawkins. You know what you get with Hawkins? It's going to come into his chest or his head, and it's going to stick, and we're going to hold up play and get others running in behind. O'Brien can do that as well, but he's just got more pace about him. We mentioned the quick feet for the first goal, the flick for Oliver Hawkins second half. I thought he was very good at dropping in and making us a 5 when we was under the cosh in fleeting spells. And then he's got enough pace and power to get up the pitch and support Ollie as well. I just thought for a first start on the first hour, the longest we've seen him in a game, I just thought it was really, really promising. And his cameos have been promising already.
Yeah, and it's one of those funny players, isn't it? Because you could argue, like, what's he actually doing in terms of goals or assists or this kind of stuff? But actually, it's like Hawkins. He's just that solid presence that's got that cutting edge that can just that other goal scorers can feed off of. And I think also his experience of playing with teams. He plays at Sunderland for a bit, wasn't he, as well? So he's
Sunderland, Portsmouth, Millwall. So
yeah,
they're all good sides. You don't play for them 3 sides if you're not a very good player at the level.
Exactly. And I think that experience that he's had with these kind of quality teams and these quality sides is showing at this level. And I think we can get a lot more out of him. And and I don't know what that means for Shrewsbury, because obviously I can't work out how good their team is that he has no place in it, which is really odd.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing all right in fairness to them. They're top half in League One, so there's obviously a reason. I know there was rumours of a fallout with Steve Cotterill, but again, it'd be something I'd hope we'd be looking at in the summer to try and get him in on a more permanent basis. Right, player ratings as a whole before we finish up. Glenn Morris, 7.5. I thought everything he did was decent, aside from that one little half lapse first period where he didn't come off his line quite quick enough. But I thought he made some decent saves at crucial times again. His distribution, the command of his box is everything that you want in a goalkeeper. Yeah,
absolutely. I gave him 7.5 as well. That was my rating. I thought he was solid. He kept a clean sheet. So why wouldn't you give a goalkeeper 7.5?
Back 4. I went both fullbacks a solid 7, Shea Alexander and Robbie McKenzie. And we've already spoken about both centre halves. I went 7.5 for both the centre backs. I thought as a unit they were very good. It just, because of the commentary and how the game was played, I thought the centre backs just deserved a little higher mark rather than the fullbacks.
Yeah, so I gave Conor Marston, actually gave him an 8 in the end. I thought it was a real performance, and I gave Maxime a 7.5. But I mean, it could easily both been 8 or both 7.5, but as I've already alluded to, that the reason why I gave Conor Marston that 8 because I just loved the tackle at the end.
That's fair enough. And fullbacks, what did you give Alexander and McKenzie?
Yeah, I gave him. I gave him 7. Oh, hang on, check my notes quickly. Yeah, I gave him 7.5 across the back, and Conor Marston 8. There you go. Sorry, so all 7.5.
No, fair enough. Again, it's great 8. to be mentioning.
Yeah,
7.5s and 8s and
yeah.
we've said it before, haven't we? That 7 was comfortably man of the match before Christmas, and
Yeah.
now 7, you're like, oh, he's had an off day, he's only got a 7. Middle of the park, and I know some people might say that he wasn't that good, but Sean Williams, and I think Peter Lloyd described it as he does a lot of unsexy work.
Mm.
And I think it showed how much we missed him on Tuesday night, because first half, Jules Lapsley and Tim Dien kept making the same movements forward. Tim didn't look comfortable playing behind the ball, I think, as Neil Harris calls it. And yesterday, again, I thought Tim Dien was slightly off it. I thought Sean Williams, though, was really good at what he does. He just gets it. He breaks up play. All right, his pass completion rate weren't great yesterday, but he was just stopping them from playing through the middle, which then forced them to go wide. Balls into our box. We can head it clear because we've got 2 commanding centre-backs at the moment. So I gave Sean Williams a 7.
Yeah, that's the same for me. I gave Shaw Williams a 7 as well, and for the same reasons. Actually, it was just a solid presence in that midfield that showed the experience that he has, and it's now he's now becoming relatively Mr. Consistent in the way he's performing, which is really promising to see. Did you give Timothy Dieng his rating yet? Because I've got one for him.
6.5.
Yeah, that was mine actually, 6.5. I just thought out of all the players on the pitch, he was the one that was most invisible and didn't seem to add any real value to the game, particularly in the across the whole 90 minutes, which we know he's capable of a lot more. So for me, he got a 6.5.
Well, I think that's probably the issue with Timmy at the moment, is he started so well, didn't he? He was very good against Hartlepool, scored that goal at Swindon, and we thought, we got Rolls Royce here at League Two. He's probably just dropped off a little bit in the last couple of weeks, and there's been a couple of balls that have led to trouble. The goal against Grimsby, and obviously a couple of chances yesterday. But again, it's nice that when one player just drops off, there's others that get around him and make sure that it's not a thing that becomes contagious and spreads throughout the whole team, which I think was the issue before the takeover.
Yeah, it was, but I think we now have with Tim Dieng, he's shown what he's capable of, and he's also now added to that cohesiveness, that glue in the center of the park, and we know that what he's capable of can really add to them. And he's already got a banged going a decent head against Swindon, so I think it's just an off. Hopefully, it's just a bit of a low key few games for him, and he'll really start to pick it up moving forward. But we definitely have got someone there that can really cause some damage moving forward. In my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Not saying that he's it's going to continue. This just
of course not.
It's just a blip, I'd imagine. But again, it's a poor performance in the context of how we're playing now. If it was 6 weeks ago, we're probably going, oh, Tim Dieng's had a decent game, because the group was lower in terms of quality levels. Dom Jeffries, 6.5, 7. I'm going to say 6.5 again. I just thought it was another game where his work rate and his tenacity and everything was absolutely spot on. But I just thought there were moments where he just picked the wrong option again. I know we had the shot first half, can't do a lot more with that. I understand that. But just another one who was probably just below the level of everyone else on the day. So another 6.5 for me for Dom.
Yeah, it was say I struggle with this one. It was, if I could give a 6.75.
That's where I was. I think
that's where it was. Yeah, good effort, good tenacity, as you say. Use those words again, but wasn't his greatest performance. But by far wasn't his worst. So just somewhere around there.
George Lapsley, I thought his performance on a whole was a 7. He was in and out of the game, but he arrived at key times. And for me, it's a 7.5 with the goal, because he's ultimately scored the clincher. 2 in 2. He's doing everything that we wanted him to do when he arrived. He's in the starting 11 now. Can't see him coming out. So for me, George, 7.5.
Yeah, no, I actually gave him a 7. I forgot to add on the 0.5 for the goal, but as a whole performance, if you take away the goal, it's a 7 for me. It was just, again, it did a little bit more than what I thought Dom Jeffries did, but for me, that wasn't the most important part of our game yesterday. They were just there as a solid unit in midfield, but that was a 7 for me.
Front 2. Aidan O'Brien, we've already spoken about. I gave him a 7. I think it would have been higher if he'd stayed on for longer than 65 minutes, because I just thought he was very good in everything he did in that hour or so. So for me, a solid 7 for him. Ollie Hawkins, again, similar to what Williams does. He does a lot of work that's not easy on the eye all the time, and it's brutal to watch at times. But he takes elbows, he takes digs, he gets clattered, he gets people run through the back of him. He just gets up, he holds the ball up, and he's found himself in the right place at the right time. Again, 2 in 2 games. You can't argue with that with a centre forward. So 7.5 for Ollie Hawkins again as well. I thought it was a solid 7 performance, and 0.5 for the goal again.
Yeah, so for me, for O'Brien, I mean, I I give him a 7.5 actually, because I'd like to rate him for the time he's on the pitch, and so for me it's a 7.5.
Okay.
I thought he was a good addition to the front two, and also a good replacement for Tom Nichols if he needs a rest, and to give a player a 7.5 as a result of that, it's pretty good that we have that option at the moment. And again, for Hawkins, it's also a 7.5 as well. I thought both at the top there and Hawkins, like you say, he does a lot of the dirty work that often doesn't get praised. And
exactly.
And you know what, you need someone like that at the top to be able to do that, and he was doing that well yesterday, and to be rewarded with a shim roller is excellent.
Substitutes, just to finish up, I gave Tom Nichols a 7. He's played a big part in the winner, albeit Rochdale have made it very, very easy for him, but he's still got to get the ball to the far post. I thought he come on, he worked hard, he was a nuisance up front. He didn't allow them to settle or push us back. I'm not giving a rating to Alex McDonald or David to Tom. They've only got a couple of minutes.
No.
So
I gave a 7 as well. I always imagine when Nichols came on, I always imagine the Rochdale defence just went, oh God, we've got this to deal with now. That's how I kind of felt they might have reacted to it. And you know what? They looked kind of exasperated at the back when we got the second goal. So that's probably how they reacted when he came on.
yeah, and again, it comes back to us now. We're able to rest and rotate, and we can able to bring on like for like quality. All right, different qualities. In terms of Nichols and O'Brien, but in terms of the standard, you're not losing anything at all, whether it's Nichols, O'Brien, Hawkins, Lapsley, Macca, Jeffries, Dieng at the moment, because everyone's playing so well with such confidence and freedom that there's no drop in terms of the quality of the 11. It's another positive one. It's been really good again. One. It just keeps happening. It's almost becoming a habit, which is great fun. It's now 16 points from 21 since we lost to Stevenage on the 4th of January.
When's the last time we did something like that? 5 wins in 7. I think someone pointed this 5 years ago. We did something like that, and
it's staggering. I'd imagine there was probably runs similar under Evans when we threatened the playoffs a couple of times, but it's difficult to imagine because one season we couldn't watch live. It reminds me, and we said about this, didn't we, that it had a start of the season feel Hartlepool. It was like it was first day of a new campaign. Dare I say it, start of the Justin Edinburgh season, 15-16, when we started off like an absolute express train. Obviously, it didn't end well, but again, I can't see us dropping back into the bottom 2 now, and I cannot wait for next season.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think what I want this season to turn into is I want us to get mathematical safety, and then each game just feels like a bit of an exhibition performance, and just we can just enjoy watching a game of football rather than worrying about what's happening behind us or worrying about what's going to happen in front of us. Just want to have a mediocrity. That's what I want to get to.
Yeah, that'd be great. If we can get to 45, 50 points as quick as possible and enjoy the rest of the season, rest and rotate, we might be able to see the likes of Jaden Clark, Ethan Coleman, that type of thing. Jake Turner might get a run of games as well. Reese, I'm going to have to go because my laptop is beeping at me because the battery is about to die. It's been a pleasure as always. Another brilliant 3 points on the road for Neil Harris's men, albeit a different type of performance. Again, proper away performance.
Totally agree. And and you've got a football match to get to, I think, too, as well. Is that right?
I've got a semi-final to go and play, midday kickoff, which is absolutely horrendous. We're not even on Sky Sports Live at that time.
What's that like?
Super Saturday. Anyway, Gills fans and Rochdale fans, if you have watched this far, then I do appreciate it as always. We are nearly at 2,400 subscribers, which is absolutely staggering. Do not forget to go and check out Reese's channel, German Gills. He is on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. I will put the link in the description at the bottom of this video. No midweek game this week, which is good. Gives us a great chance to prepare for 2 tougher games coming up. We have Wimbledon and Bradford back-to-back on the horizon, which will be a step up in quality of what we've seen over recent weeks in terms of Rochdale, Hartlepool, Colchester, Crawley. No disrespect to them clubs. Enjoy your week. We'll be back Wednesday, Thursday with a match preview, looking ahead to Wimbledon at home on Saturday. But until then, up the Gills.
Up the Gills.